Hello and welcome once again to Cadet To Career, the podcast series dedicated to the world of opportunity available through Cadet Vocational College. So far in this series, we've looked at the training, development and qualifications developed by CV College that help enhance the activities and achievements undertaken as part of a youth organisation. In this episode, we'll be looking at all-important next step post-GCSEs. Whether it's a decision to carry on to further education at college or university, go directly into employment, maybe think about an apprenticeship, or even choose a life in the armed forces, there is plenty to talk about. We'll hear advice and very useful tips from a recruitment specialist, a nationwide apprenticeship employer, and we'll also learn about the experience of choosing the armed forces as a career. Whichever opportunity presents itself, it's vital to be properly prepared if you're going to stand out and make the right impression. Which is why we've enlisted the help of our guest for this episode. Esther Marsden is a business consultant with Career Tree, and she's helped many people entering the workplace for the first time. She's got some fabulous tips. Chris Littlewood is an apprentice coach from car servicing and repairs expert QuickFit, who take on up to 300 new apprentices every year. And Brigadier Gary McDade looks back at his long career in the Army and what it has to offer. There comes a time when we all have to face up to the challenge of attending an interview, and while some may think they can wing it on personality and charm alone, the most successful candidates all have one thing in common. They've prepared and practiced in advance. Thinking about what to wear, how to behave, and how to respond effectively to questions during an interview is important and could make the difference between success and disappointment. Whether it's seeking to secure your first employment or maybe a promotion, the route to finally being successful can be varied, from responding to an advertised post, applying for an apprenticeship through an employer or college, or looking for help from a recruitment agency. There's plenty to think about. I caught up with business consultant Esther Marsden from Career Tree and started by asking her about the expectations people have when they start the job seeking process. Esther, I'm looking forward to talking to you about the whole recruitment process, the whole people seeking jobs. It's a bit of a minefield. It's something that you've spent your career doing. So over to you, really. Somebody starting off, whatever age they are, seeking a new career. From the starting point, what in your experience are the expectations that they sort of set on finding a career? Are they realistic? Are they wanting to palm it all off onto someone like you? Are they really proactive in the whole thing? What's the starting process, do you think?
I think it depends very much on the individual, as all these things do. Some are very proactive, some are expect the recruiter to do everything for them, and they need their hand holding all the time. And there's no shame in that, because that's what we're there for. But the people who are most successful are the ones who are very proactive, most definitely.
So proactive. Let's talk about proactive.
Yeah.
What in your mind should people be thinking of before they even kind of start? So they've got their qualifications, they've got a mindset about where they want to be. What are the key ingredients, if you like, of starting their journey?
I suppose there are various components. One is obviously preparation. They need to be really prepared, and by that I mean, they've got to have some idea of the direction in which they want to go, what sort of career they want. Probably the best thing that they can do is network. And I know that's very difficult these days to network, but you can network online. It doesn't have to be face-to-face. Obviously, it's really good if they could do it face-to-face, because there's nothing like a human connection. And actually, some of the young, they don't really like doing that anymore. But networking is a really, really good way of actually understanding what's out there, talking to people, finding out what employers are looking for, who they should be talking to, and they can do it online. I mean, LinkedIn is a fantastic resource for people to look at. LinkedIn, I'm not advertising for LinkedIn, by the way. I'm just it is a very good resource.
It's a good resource, yeah.
And also it's a professional resource, because I think sometimes, you know, people starting off, they think they can go on Instagram and things like that, and you know, unless you want to be an influencer, which an awful lot of them do, you know, if you're looking for a professional career, then LinkedIn is a really good place for two things. One is to learn, because they've got some fantastic resources, but also it gives you an opportunity to look for the type of companies, what they're looking for, what sort of jobs they advertise, what they quite often put on their profiles, what it is that they are actually looking for people starting off, and not to be put off by a job that sounds as if maybe they need a bit more than they've got, because you can always find something that you've got for a role if that's what you really want to do.
It's interesting you're talking there, you know, you mentioned the influencer, and it's something that's obviously a trend, whether it's going to stay or go away or whatever, but it's important to know also your social media footprint, and that's what we're sort of talking about here. So tell me a little bit more about particularly young people. I mean, people my age, if you know, we're talking about, you know, adult volunteers as well, anybody wanting to go into the job market. It's very rare that you don't have some kind of social media footprint, but how important is it that people are aware of what potential employers will look at?
Okay, well, one thing I advise everybody is, before they start applying for a job, if they haven't looked at their social media footprint, they need to, because every employer will go online and look for them. And if there's stuff on there that they think is not appropriate to their business, then they will take that into consideration. So if you want to put stuff out there, then do it under a name that is, you know, a sort of, not a pseudonym, but sort of something that is not recognisable. Make sure that your personal life and your professional life are definitely in two different camps. I can't stress that enough, because I would say every single employer will do that now. They will look at your social media footprint. If you're using LinkedIn, again, I would suggest that they can see that you have been either sharing posts about their type of business, or you've been attending some sort of networking event, or you've been attending a course, anything that shows that you're serious about about their particular area, so that you're really looking to move into that. So I'd really suggest that you make sure that your LinkedIn profile is absolutely up to date, and also that it matches what you say on your CV.
So that leads nicely on to what makes a candidate stand out, the various little components. Well, they're not little by any means, but CVs, attending interview, the prep for interview. What makes a candidate stand out? And those things that you're saying there, I mean, being proactive and researching the company that you're wanting to go for, probably, you know, slots into that.
It certainly does. I mean, so every time you apply for a job, you should be tailoring it to the job. And I know it's really annoying that, and it takes time, and what you want to do is just send off your CV or do the application. So there are various things. One is that, as I say, make sure your CV matches your LinkedIn profile. You have to tailor it. You absolutely have to tailor it to the job. So make sure that it's pulling out the things that that they want to see. So read the job description and mirror the job description to your CV. Don't lie, obviously, but just make sure that you're pulling out the things that you feel would be relevant to the job description. Think about the person who's reading it. You know, they're really busy people. These companies, they get hundreds and hundreds of CVs, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to make it easy for them just highlight the things, have a little précis, have a couple of bullet points that you know are just going to grab their attention, because it is, I'm afraid, it is a bit of a yes, no, yes, no, yes, no situation when somebody's that busy. I mean, obviously they have algorithms now as well. And I'd say, again, probably about 80% of jobs now go through an algorithm. So making sure that your CV has keywords in it that match the job description so you don't get filtered out. So there are all sorts of things you have to think about, I'm afraid, even before you get to the interview. But making sure that you're using those keywords and that you're highlighting the things that you know match the job description.
The clues are there, aren't there, in the job description? They're giving you you some information, and it's up to you to pick it out. And that's part of the thing as well. If you're observant and you're attention to detail, if you can't even read the job description, then there's not a huge amount of hope, is there?
Don't use AI, because if you do that, it's quite often recognisable. And secondly, if you use AI to do the application, if lots of people have done that, all the applications will look the same. And so therefore they'll just filter out.
I think we've covered off the question of how have things changed over the past few years.
Hugely.
I mean, we could spend an entire podcast just talking about that. It's really interesting to listen about certain sectors and industries and what's popular at the moment. And we talk about influencers, people thinking that's a career choice. Yes, maybe you can make a lot of money and all that kind of stuff. But from your experience, what are the things that are sort of grabbing and people are have remained popular, if you like, over past years?
I suppose the things that have remained popular are anything in the creative, the media, and anything creative people love. That word creative is a catch-all. So if somebody can put creative in their job description, then they'll probably get more people to apply than not. I mean, obviously, the financial sector is also very popular. But I think probably it's not so much the sector, it's more what the companies, how the companies put themselves across to their employees. So it's their DE&I proposals. How flexible are they for working? Will they let you work remotely or not? And that, I'd say, that is much more important than necessarily the sector, because the sector you want to go into, so that's the sector you go into. But it's more the company policies and how they treat their staff, and that is much more important, I would say, now than anything else.
And if we're talking particularly about here, we're talking about CV College, and we're talking about the opportunities that the college offers all ages. But from those types of jobs, looking at sort of apprentice roles, graduate roles, all the things that you can add to your CV, it's very important to make that sing, isn't it? What we've been saying is make the most out of yourself, and certainly what CV College is sort of offering young people and adults as well. You've got to make that really work for you, haven't you?
Yes, you do, and make sure it's highlighted as well, in your CV and any application that you make. So education is important, obviously. Any extra things that you do, and anything that you've got that's sort of slightly unique, maybe, if you've got a language, and anything you've done, perhaps you've done some work experience somewhere that you can use just to sort of highlight that either you're serious about the sector you want to go into, or that actually, you're a hardworking person. You haven't been sitting on your bottom, doing nothing, and that you can actually, you're keen to find work. But at the same time, as I say, that with the employers, what people are looking for are what they're going to give back to them. And I think that's the biggest change in the last few years, is that it used to be that you went along for a job and whippy, I've got a job, and you almost, particularly when you were starting out, it didn't really matter. You just wanted to get a job, and hopefully they were nice and you would move on, and you could then move on to the next job. Whereas now it's much more about, okay, what's the employer going to do for me? And employers have had to respond to that.
That's really interesting. I hadn't really factored that in to my thought process, really, because everybody, since COVID as well, everybody's changed their mindset.
Yes.
And that's a really interesting point. If I could just finish off, this puts you on the spot. We've spoken about do's and don'ts. We've spoken about all those things. But if you could give me a top tip, a top do, and a top don't for preparing myself for putting myself out there, what would that be? Top do, top don't.
The top do, there are two. I'd say persistence. You have to persevere, because I'll be honest, it's a pretty hard thing to do. Look for a job these days. It's a full-time job in itself, looking for a job. So persistence and not getting downhearted is really important. And I will go back to the networking. I think, I'm sorry, those two are absolutely key. I suppose don't give up, and make sure you've got lots and lots and lots of information about what you're going to say in your interviews. So don't just swan up to an interview thinking that you'll wing it. That won't work. It's very precious getting an interview these days, so you really must make the most of it.
The interview process, I mean, that's another subject on its own, isn't it? But the whole preparation, knowing how you come across, knowing your preparation, you've done the hard work of preparing and getting yourself seen. Elaborate for me a little bit more about then the preparation process of making that into the interview, and you're there on the day.
Okay. So you've got your interview. First thing is, don't be late, because that will really set a bad tone, I tell you, if you're late. Secondly, lots of people now don't want to shake hands when they go for an interview, and that's perfectly fine. But make it clear why you're not, because again, that might sort of set a slightly different tone. That all the questions, try and think of every single question that they may ask. They may want to look up, if they haven't already, the STAR method, which is, they're competency-based interviews. All interviews now are competency-based. So if you're not ready for it, then you'll fail. So make sure that you've done you understand the STAR technique, which is, it's describe a situation, what task was needed to be done, what action did you take, and what was the outcome. And if you can't answer questions like that, then the interview won't flow, and it will be less of a conversation, because the STAR technique, it allows you to introduce more of a conversational type of interview rather than question answer. And again, you're trying to build rapport with somebody, so that's a really good and very important thing to do before you go on your interview. So lots of examples. Think about loads and loads and loads of examples. I mean, I have a friend who went for a job at one of the top legal firms, one of the Magic Circle, when he was just starting out. And one of the examples he gave of what he'd done was working in a chicken factory, and and it was quite monotonous, and it was very not terribly interesting, and they were more interested in that than anything else that he had done, because it was different, and because it showed that he was prepared to do something that perhaps wasn't that exciting. And so, don't think that something won't be relevant. Use any example that you've got to try and...
Or also things that might not have gone right, things that you've learned from, and how you've adapted and how you've moved on.
Because people will ask you, tell me a time when you had to adapt, or you had to change, or something didn't go right. What did you do about it? How did you manage it? What was the result of it? So any examples, that is probably one of the biggest things about preparing for an interview, is thinking of examples of things you're going to talk about, because it's quite a stressful situation in an interview, especially if you're not used to it, and trying to think of things on the hop is really hard. So if you've thought about it before, you've practiced with people, get somebody to interview you before you go along.
And in terms of the examples, I mean, just highlighting that, any old person can say, I can do this because I'm interested in this, because I'm doing this, wah. But I suppose as well, when we're talking about CV college, the teamwork, the things that they actually do, the tasks that they actually perform, they are examples in the making, and just write them down and keep them in your mind. I mean, probably keep a log as you're going on through your career, because when something occurs to you, it could come up in a future interview, couldn't it? It's all about preparation.
Absolutely. It's all about preparation. It's like, you know, if you're going to have a review of your job, you know, if you've been writing things down that you've done throughout the 6 months before the review, you don't have to think, oh God, what have I done? You know, so it's exactly the same thing. Yeah, write things down. Yeah.
Esther, it's been fascinating talking to you. Lots to think about there. Lots for anyone listening to this podcast to think about. Thank you very much. Business consultant with a Career Tree. Thank you so much for your insight and your experiences, and more importantly, your advice.
Not at all. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Some sound advice from Esther there.
You're listening to the Cadet to Career podcast, brought to you by Cadet Vocational College, improving lives through vocational education.
One of the increasingly popular options for the transition into full-time employment is through an apprenticeship. And with new government plans to place more emphasis on opportunities for those under 22, the earn while you learn route to a career is well worth considering. There are thousands of opportunities available at all levels in hundreds of different industry sectors. One crucial factor for those who choose the apprenticeship route is the opportunity to be paid a salary while you learn a trade, and can be a key factor for those who may prefer not to take the college or university route, particularly if potential costs of fees and loans is an issue. Automotive specialists QuickFit have an annual nationwide programme to recruit up to 300 new apprentices each year. And Chris Littlewood is a QuickFit apprentice coach and joins Steve Taylor to explain how the scheme works.
It's quite a big apprenticeship scheme that we've got going. We take on up to 300 apprentices a year at the moment. Not in one go, though. Over 7 intakes we do it to make it a little bit more reasonable. But it also means that if at any point you're looking to join us, you don't have to wait too long. It's not horrific. We have centres all over the country, so there's plenty of options for roles in the company that you can join at plenty of places. And we've got training academies throughout the country as well. So throughout the apprenticeship, there's 12 weeks that a learner would spend at the training academy. They'd do it in separate week stints, and then over the 2 years they'll finish the apprenticeship with a level 2 auto care, so that they're then fully qualified to service within the company.
Famously, Chris, you had an advertising campaign years ago which was, you can't get better than a quick fit fitter. Is that the next generation that you're training?
Yes, definitely. Our apprentices, they tend to do really, really well. We've got lots of apprentices that have gone on to management and even higher. I mean, currently at the very top of our company, so our operations director, he started off as an apprentice as well within our company. So they're really big on internal promotion. It's really important to us.
That's a great example, Chris, isn't it, of where a job becomes a career? Because if your head of operations started as an apprentice and is now in that senior management role, it's the proof in the pudding.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Were you an apprentice, Chris?
I wasn't, unfortunately. I wasn't aware of the apprenticeship when I started, which is a massive, massive shame. We do have other coaches that were apprentices. But no, for me, I started with the company when I was about 18, going 19, so a similar age. I started as a tyre fitter and worked my way up to doing more mechanical jobs, servicing, and then I went into management. I was in management for 15 years, and then went over to the training side of it, which is a lot different. It's fun. You get to spend time doing interesting things with all the apprentices, getting out and about. But no, as I say, unfortunately, I didn't. Wish I did, though.
It's a great scheme because, as you've highlighted, you could start off, as a tyre fitter and end up as the director of operations. So at those early stages, Chris, everybody is aware that when you're an apprentice, you earn while you're learning, which is one of the fundamental differences to, say, college or university. What sort of salary can an apprentice hope to achieve when they start?
So at the very beginning, they start off just over £15,500 a year, 15,577 off the top of my head. But as they progress, it does go up. It goes up after the first year, and when they're almost finished, and then when they've passed their exams, they then go on to be a fully qualified service technician. So they can end up getting a good wage just from the 2 years apprenticeship.
Absolutely, and it's a 5-day-a-week operation, but one of those days is spent off-site or at college, maybe, Chris.
So with our company, it's a little different. So they spend the full 5 days in their centre, and then every so often they'll go away for a week to one of our training academies. So we have them all over the country. We've got them Scotland, we've got Sheffield, Derby, and then down south we've got two down south. So they'll go away for the full week. They have the opportunity when they start, they book all of the 12 weeks of courses. So they can start with that same group of apprentices and then go to the same courses throughout their apprenticeship. Or if they want to break it up, they can go to different ones. It's up to them. But it just gives them that opportunity to stay together as a group and progress together, really.
And that's important as well, isn't it? When you can make friends with the people that you're learning with and that you're going to be embarking on your career with. So what do you look for when you're recruiting new apprentices? I can imagine that you're overwhelmed with applications, which means you have to sift through them. So what do you look for?
So for us, we're looking for passion for the industry, someone who's looking to be in that sort of role, someone that enjoys cars, they're interested in cars.
The people that are on the books of Cadet Vocational College do their BTEC, which enables them to develop communication skills, team working skills, problem solving skills. Presumably, if they were able to demonstrate those to you, they would be useful at that interview stage.
Absolutely, because in the long run, that's what we're looking for. We don't need people that can work on cars. We need people that can problem solve and find faults, for example. And then communication, part of our apprenticeship is dealing with customers, customer service, customer care. And then we have, as I said earlier, we have a lot of examples of apprentices that do go on to become management. Some almost as soon as they finish their apprenticeship, if they do that well. So it is a big part, communication makes a big difference.
How big of an importance is the way they present themselves at interview as well? I mean, a CV is one thing, as we all know, and a job application letter can have a few little bits of embellishment in it, can't it? But when it comes to the interview stage, how important is it that they're prepared for that? And how much of a difference does that make when you're thinking about taking somebody on?
It's massively important. We talk about first impressions, but really, potentially, it's only one impression. They get that one go at an interview. So if they put themselves across well, they're going to stick in your mind, and that's what we want. Someone who you remember.
Remember for the right reasons, presumably.
Absolutely.
I mean, you must have interviewed hundreds. Chris, can you spot the ones that you think, do you know what, they're going to be on a trajectory towards management and great things from the outset?
Yes, absolutely. It's all within that passion. If you find someone that's really, really passionate, we've got the people that can support and nurture that and help it grow. I mean, for example, that's what's happened with me. I wouldn't be in the place I am now without the handful of people that we have in the company that are there to help you get there.
It sounds like there's a heck of a lot of support as well. Your role as an apprenticeship coach is very closely connected with the apprentices, but I get the sense that the organisation puts a great deal of weight and effort behind supporting the apprentices through the programme.
Absolutely. We genuinely feel that the future of our business. So that makes them one of the most important parts. Without them, we don't have a future ourselves.
Seeing them as an investment, not just an employee.
Exactly. Once they've finished their apprenticeship, that is just the start of the journey. When they start with us, if it's what they're looking for, they have a career for life. So it's just a case of when they're finished deciding where they want to go from there, what route to take, because there's so many options within the company.
So, Chris, what advice would you give to anybody who might be listening to this who either hasn't yet considered the apprenticeship route or didn't know about the quick fit scheme? What advice would you give them if they are in that balance stage of trying to make up their mind whether to do an apprenticeship or not?
For me, I would just say to do the research. There's plenty of information out there, and see if it is right for them, because it needs to be. It needs to be what they want. If they're unsure, speak to people. There's plenty of people that have done an apprenticeship or are apprentices. If they speak to them, find out and get some background. Obviously, I can say it's brilliant, but I'm a bit biased.
I would expect you to be Chris, nothing but as well. It sounds like you've had a great time working on the apprenticeship scheme and in your time with QuickFit as well. So where can people find out more information about QuickFit and particularly, of course, your apprenticeship scheme?
So we've got a website set up that's QuickFit Careers. That's all you need to put in. And then it lists everything. It'll go through the whole apprenticeship and tell you all the details about it.
Chris, absolute pleasure to catch up with you, and good luck with the rest of the QuickFit programme.
Thank you very much.
It's good to hear from Chris about the apprenticeship option, and remember there are options across many industry sectors right up to degree level. You can find lots of information about apprenticeships, including those in your local area, by simply searching online for apprenticeships near me. Or you can try the UCAS website at ucas.com/apprenticeships. And of course, you can log on to quickfit.com/careers for more information about their apprenticeship scheme. And remember, many colleges and universities also have partner employers that offer a route to employment that might suit those who wish to go down the further or higher education pathway. Across the military-sponsored cadet forces in the UK, around 15% or so of cadets choose a career in the armed forces. With a diverse offering of trades, specialisms and varied entry levels across all the services, there's plenty of career options that the Army, Royal Air Force and Royal Navy provide. Now, a Brigadier and Deputy Commander of Cadets at Regional Command, Gary McDade, knew early on that his future was one to be spent in uniform. As he nears the end of his time in the Army, he joined me to reflect on his own Cadet to Career journey. How and why did you make the decision to join the Armed Forces?
Well, this is a very easy question for me to answer. So I was a cadet myself. I was a combined cadet force cadet at a school called Wycliffe College in Gloucestershire, and I think there are three reasons why I chose a life in the services. The first one was the fact that I was in the cadets, and it gave me an introduction into the values, the type of career that the Army would offer. And I was very fortunate, and I'm going to age myself now, that the first summer camp I ever went on was in 1987. I went to Berlin. And I jumped on a train as a 14-year-old and I went through East Germany and I ended up in West Berlin, hosted by 1st Battalion, the Gloucestershire Regiment. And for 14 days, my eyes were opened as to the opportunities of a life in the military. And it was just a fantastic adventure. And then roll the clock forward to 1990. I went back to Berlin. After the end of the Cold War, the wall had come down and I was in Berlin as a 17-year-old. And my cadet camp happened to coincide with Germany winning the World Cup final. I was on the streets of Berlin, age 17, with the West German, or the Germany fans as it was then, and they'd beaten Argentina 1-0. And my insight to the life in the Army and just generally the cadet force was it. That was the career for me. The second reason was I was at school in the southwest, and I did something called 10 Tours, the 10 Tours Challenge over Dartmoor, where youngsters of varying ages walk between 35, 45 or 55 miles across the moor over a 36-hour period, completely self-sufficient. And I did the 35-mile challenge and the 45-mile challenge as a cadet. And it gave me great resilience, it gave me confidence, it made me learn about teamwork and just stepping outside into a pretty austere environment and learning for myself how far I could test myself and an acknowledgement that a life in the forces would give me more of that was a second reason. And the third reason, and probably the most important, was my contingent commander at my school was Major Wes Thomas. And Wes is now 90, and I've seen him a couple of times recently to thank him for the guidance and support he gave me as a school child. But it's absolutely clear that when I was there as a 16-year-old, and we might touch on how I was as a 16-year-old, he was the person who metaphorically put an arm around me, gave me the confidence to go for it. He guided me, gave me support into what a life in the career, what a life in the military would be all about. And here I am. And I didn't go to university. I left school. I took a gap year. I delivered a few pizzas. I travelled around Africa. I had some fun. Then I entered Sandhurst age 19. And wind the clock forward, I'm now in my 33rd year in the military, and I love it today as much as I did back then. Well,
it sounds like it. The passion is clearly, it's not going away. It's coming out in huge amounts in how you're describing it.
Well, I feel incredibly privileged that I've come full circle in two reasons. Number one, I'm at the twilight of my military career, and I'm now looking after Army cadets on behalf of Commander Cadets, who's my boss, General James Senior, Commander Regional Command. But on a day-to-day basis, he delegates that to me. So to end my career where I sort of was, even before my career started as a cadet, was fantastic. And in my last job as Commander Southwest, I was also director 10 tours. So for 22 and 23, I was the director of 10 tours where we had 2,500 youngsters going out on the moor. So to have done that event twice and come back and be the events director was an incredible full circle. And so my enthusiasm for this career endures.
Yes. And brought about the youngsters that you're seeing coming through. You're seeing yourself back in those, and then it's all, like you say, the full circle. It's fascinating.
It's fantastic. I mean, I spend most of my days, like many people at my stage of my career, sitting behind a computer, writing policy, dealing with knotty issues. But every now and again, and quite often, I get out and I go and see cadets, and every time I see cadets and every time I see adult volunteers, my batteries are recharged, and I'm reminded why the hard graft in the office is absolutely worth it. Just 2 days ago on Saturday, I was with Devon ACF at a rebadging parade where one of their companies was rebadging to the Royal Wessex Yeomanry, and there was 120 cadets on parade, and the opportunity to go and shake their hands, to give them their new berets, and perhaps more importantly, to thank the adult volunteers, the incredible bunch of selfless volunteers who give of their time to enable the cadet experience. And every opportunity I have to get out and about, I always seize it.
I love the fact that in 20, 30 years' time, we might be talking to somebody in your position, talking about you in the way that you just spoke about, the man who shaped you.
Well, maybe. I mean, I suppose my role is one step removed from our volunteer community. It's really the volunteers within the cadet force, and it's not just the Army Cadet Force, it's all cadet forces and all youth organisations, actually, to that extent, who are giving their time, and they are the people who are teaching the next generation the skills, the confidence, the resilience, the values that we have in service life. I'm sort of one step removed from that. But I'd like to think that I and the team that I work with at Regional Command are a very diverse team. We're doing our bit to set the next generation up for lifelong success. And when I look at the foundations that I learnt when I was a cadet and the foundations that we are trying to instill in our cadets now, some 35 years later, that hasn't really changed. And the values that we live by in the services are very similar to the values that existed 30, 35 years ago. And they certainly stood me in good stead for my career and my life. And I'd like to think that I'm playing a small part in the next generation having a similar foundation.
So let's talk about that a little bit more, about the cadet experience, about what CV College offers in terms of qualifications and life opportunities and all those links, because they're fascinating and vital, aren't they?
Yeah, well, to answer the first question first, so the cadet experience, I would say at the heart of the cadet experience are three words: values, standards and leadership. And if we can instill the Army's values of selfless commitment, of respect for others, of discipline, etc., then that is going to be a good basis for life. And whilst I absolutely acknowledge we are not here as a recruiting tool to make cadets join the services, and a proportion, a minority will choose to serve, regardless of what our cadets choose to do in their adult life, I would like to think that these values will set them up for lifelong success. That is really important. And then if I was to describe the cadet experience in 4 words, the first would be fun. We want the cadets to turn up and have some fun. We want them to enjoy themselves and learn new skills in a safe environment. The second one would be friendship. Come and be alongside like-minded peers, people who have the same desires and outlook in life. They want to have the same adventures and learn the same resilience and step outside their comfort zones. The third one is a sense of belonging, belonging to your detachment, your company, the uniform you wear, your county, your CCF contingent. Really, really important, that sense of belonging with like-minded people. And finally, it's about well-being. And of course, physical well-being, I think, is a given, and we allow people to stretch themselves physically, but increasingly mental well-being is a very important part of what we do. And I see that as a growth area in terms of supporting people who have perhaps less advantaged than others, by providing an opportunity for those who perhaps wouldn't find themselves naturally in military service to have an opportunity to dip their toe in the water through the cadet opportunity. And those 4 words are really the heart of what we do. Linking that to the vocational college, of course, in Army cadets, the obvious things that people think of are drill, weapon handling, first aid, etc. But actually, I'd like to think that the cadet experience is far broader than that. And the vocational skills which are on offer to both our cadets and our adult volunteers, and it's really important that people acknowledge that the vocational college offers opportunities to our adults as well. That is equally important. So on your CV, as well as being able to put down that you were an Army cadet for X many years and you've got your 1-star, 2-star Master Cadet badge, the ability to put down that you've got your BTEC in whatever is just as important. And I think in some ways, perhaps more important, because that's a language that employers understand. And so not only for the cadets who are seeking employment as they leave cadets and become adults, but for our adult volunteers, the opportunities offered by the Cadet Vocational College are really important, and I'd like to think make them more attractive employees to their employers.
We've certainly heard some examples of where employers have noted that, and noted that that is where certain youngsters have gained a benefit, and they've stood out in the whole recruitment process. In saying that whatever pathway anybody takes, if we look at the Army, for example, and say some people are going to be going along that pathway, let's talk about some of the elements of recruiting and some of the things that you'd be looking at to then stretch the cadets and whoever comes through. Well,
that's very interesting. And recruiting isn't my area of expertise in that, we absolutely, there's an air gap between cadets and recruiting. But from my understanding of recruiting, of course, you can join the Army one of 2 ways. You can go down the officer route, which I did, and that requires sort of A-levels and sort of selection through the Army Officer Selection Board, and then you'd go to Sandhurst and do your training, or go through the soldier route, and that's the way the majority go. And of course, depending on different parts of the Army, there's a different level of expectation in terms of education, but of course maths and English are a prerequisite for both parts of the Army. But I think actually what people are more interested in is a sense of adventure, some resilience, the opportunity to work as a team player, a certain amount of discipline to be able to acknowledge that it's a challenging environment within which you're entering. And I'd really encourage anybody who's interested in a career in the Army to do their research. There's a very good Army website out there which will open up the opportunities to all the career paths which are available. And quite often one thinks that you can join the Army as a soldier, and you can join the infantry, you can join the engineers. But of course we have dental technicians, we have all sorts of weird and wonderful jobs out there. And as an employer, the Army offers this huge spectrum of opportunity. So I urge people who do have an interest to just go and do their research.
The reality of your whole career, the expectation that you had when you were that young and looking and thinking, I've got this passion, which is clearly still in abundance. Did the reality align with the life that the expectation rather align with the reality of the career that you've had, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's been incredible. So I commissioned from Sandhurst age 21. I celebrated my 21st birthday in the bush in Botswana. With a platoon of soldiers. I met my platoon in Africa, and then I was commanding 30 plus soldiers on operations in Bosnia, age 21. That is quite a lot of responsibility. I'm a father of 2 daughters. My elder one is 20 now, and I look at her and I think, wow, in a year's time, she'll be the same age that I was on operations, making difficult decisions in a complex environment, in an austere environment, with responsibility for a platoon's worth of soldiers. And then, of course, my career has coincided with the period in which the British Army and defence more generally has been quite operationally focused. So, I saw the tail end of Northern Ireland, and as well as the Balkans, I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan. I've spent some time in Mali and Africa as well. So I've seen a whole variety of operational theatres, and it's been incredibly rewarding. It's been very challenging. It's been quite adventurous, and in that respect, it's completely lived up to expectations. And of course, the further you go up the ladder and you gain a little bit more responsibility, perhaps opportunities of day-to-day commanding of soldiers, which is what I did a lot of in my junior career, that's become a little bit less prevalent, I suppose, but with more responsibility becomes a second half of my career which has been more office-based, dealing with different teams of people. But the adventure endures. I've played sport, I've travelled the world, I've had some incredible adventures, and I can honestly not think I'd do it in any other way if I had the choice to do it again.
We could spend an entire podcast talking to you, but could I ask you to single out the biggest challenge in that fascinating career that you've just basically put into a little 5-second description there?
I knew this question was going to come, actually, and so I've been doing a bit of thinking about it. And did you know the biggest challenge has been holding my nerve? And I say it because my promotion, and it's not all about promotion, that is, let me make that absolutely clear, and my career has been fantastic, but I sit here as a Brigadier, and I'll be honest, never in a million years did I think I'd get to Brigadier. And I think there was a point where I was a major going on Lieutenant Colonel where I didn't make the wrong decisions in the early part of my career, but I acknowledge now that I didn't broaden myself, and I was quite singular in my approach. And I think had I had my time again, I would have perhaps broadened myself, seen a few other bits of the army, because that would have made me more employable when I was in the middle rank, in the middle of my career. So for me to move from major to Lieutenant Colonel, then Lieutenant Colonel to Colonel, those were both very, very steep mountains for me to climb. And there were times where promotion didn't come, or I didn't get a job that I thought I was maybe suited to. And of course, each one of those is a knock to one's confidence. And you think, okay, well, I'm in my mid-30s, coming on 40. I've got 2 young children. Perhaps it's now the time to step off and go and do something else. But with the support of a fantastic wife behind me, who urged me to be patient, take my time, and when one door closes, another opens. And that would be one of my key messages or lessons to those who are listening, is that life will deal you a particular hand, and it might not be the path that you expected it to be, but actually you will achieve your goals if you maintain your patience and your nerve. And so here I am, and I like to think I'm a round peg in a round hole, doing a job which sees me working with cadets and in a fantastically inspiring and rewarding role. But had we had this conversation 10 years ago, I probably couldn't have imagined myself here. And so that would be the biggest challenge, I think, just having the patience to sort of let things naturally find their course. And I've ended up in a position which I'm incredibly proud of, but perhaps 10 years ago I would never expected to be in.
What's for you won't pass you by, certainly. That's what I believe in life. If you have anything else to achieve, we're all still growing. Everybody still needs something to look ahead to. What's the next sort of step for you? Is there anything on the horizon?
What's next? I'm 52, so I'm probably nearing the end of my military career. I mean, there's a lot I'd like to achieve in this job. The cadet movement is alive and well, and we have just around 75,000 Army cadets. There's about 140,000 MOD cadets. And there's an opportunity, I think, probably to do more. I mean, it's absolutely clear to my mind, and to anybody who I speak to, the value of cadets is really well understood. And I would like to do more to try and enable more youngsters to have the chance to experience what we have in the cadets. But in order to do so, we have to find more adults. We can't have more cadets with more adults. We have to find the resource, and it's a very complicated world we live in terms of money and access to defence training estate and volunteering time. So it's a very complex jigsaw. So I've got 18 months or so left in this role, and I think there are many things that I would like to achieve working alongside my Army counterparts, my RAF and Navy counterparts, because collectively, without being glib, we are setting up the next generation for lifelong success, and that is an incredibly rewarding thing to do. But it's quite complicated at the same time. And on a personal level, as I'm coming up, as I said, to 34, 35 years in the military, I need to look after myself, and working out what comes next for me is important. And I'm starting to have a think about future careers, and I've got I haven't got any irons in the fire, but I've got a few ideas as to where I'd like to go. But I very much suspect that youth and training and trying to inspire others will probably be a world that I'll hope to end up in.
Fascinating. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Brigadier Gary McDade. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of this episode, a valuable insight into the road ahead on this Cadet to Career journey. My thanks to Esther Marsden, Chris Littlewood and Brigadier Gary McDade for sharing their expertise and experiences. And you can find links to our guests on the CV College website. If you haven't done so already, you can listen to our Employability Skills Workshop Briefing Notes special episode for more insights and details about how to register for the workshop session. If you'd like to find out more about CV College and the qualifications on offer, then go to our website at cvcollege.org, or you can talk to our Learner Support Services team on 01276 601 701. Keep an eye out on our usual social media channels too for details of the next episode of Cadet to Career. That will be available soon via our podcast channel, which you can find on our website, on Spotify, Apple iTunes, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. The editor was Steve Taylor, and this has been a Create Media production for Cadet Vocational College. I'm Laura Cook. Thank you for listening.